We are back with Clairissa here, and I'm excited to talk a little bit more about her journey, having her baby Darla and losing her baby Darla at 40 weeks. So, Clarissa, thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
So, let's just back up, give everybody some context. How long ago was Darla born, and what did she basically pass away from?
Mhm. She was born March of 2021. That would be, is it 18 months?
I
I
think it might be
think
a little bit more than 18 months,
it's
maybe
more than a
19.
year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Mhm.
fairly close at this point. We're pretty close to 2 years, or at least it
Mhm.
feels like it. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
just like watching that inch closer
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
Um, she had the cord wrapped around her thigh, and she had true knots in her umbilical cord.
Several true knots, everybody. It
Yeah,
was like 5. I just wanna
5,
point out
right.
5 true knots in her umbilical cord.
And right now, she's our first and only baby. So I think I don't understand. You're like 5, and I'm like, "Okay." Like,
Yeah. She's like she's like, "I don't understand what the" yeah,
I
there were 5 true knots,
I'm not sure
everybody.
why you're making it a thing. I don't understand.
Yeah,
That's
because
why.
it's yeah, it's crazy. So, anyway, so we're grateful that you are here, and I'm grateful that you're coming to talk to us a little bit about your experience after your loss. It has been delightful talking to you. So, I'm gonna just warn everybody that there's been a lot of laughing, even though this is a podcast about loss.
Yeah.
Because Clarissa is a very like she's just very happy. Like she loves to laugh, and I love to laugh too. So apologies
Like,
ahead of time.
laughing about or
Yeah.
through pain is
Yeah.
so much easier option for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It works out. So but I thank you for just being willing to come on and shed some light on things as they have been for you. So tell me, I actually want to know how was you we ended your story of Clarissa of your birth story that you had of Darla, and you talked about that you're being kind of surrounded by your family, which is so lovely, and being surrounded by their love and their comfort and just their presence, like that made a huge difference. And you mentioned that you worked before you went on leave. Tell me how that was after though. Like, tell me about transitioning to work, if you did go back to work, and how did that look? Because I know that this is not an easy process sometimes.
Right. I work from home because of the pandemic. I am technically like a government employee, like federal,
Mhm.
um, associated with, I guess. At the end of 2020, it was like October of 2020. They pushed through in Congress paid maternity leave for 3 months for all
Which
federal employees,
which is great. Like,
which I don't understand why it took till 2020 to make that a
e
thing.
exactly. Yes, so it is great.
It's great. So I was the first to deliver stillborn after that ruling within my company. Possibly still the only. Not that I've heard any
Yeah.
anyway. And HR had to do a lot of research to decide what qualifies as maternity leave. I was 40 weeks and 3 days past her due date when I delivered her.
Mhm.
And it took a long time for them to decide. They gave me some admin leave, like my all the way up to my VP, my boss, my second, my third line, my fourth line, like they were just kicking and taking names for me.
Yeah,
Like
which is
they were
great.
great.
Yeah.
And, working with HR and trying to get answers out of them because they don't know. Like everyone likes to think HR is evil, but like they don't know. They can't quite just make a decision. They have to go based on what the
The
ruling
policies. Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
law. And they came down to say that because I did not have a baby at home, it was not maternity leave. So they allowed me to take as much paid time off as I wanted or unpaid. My company does allow like this sharing of paid time off.
Yeah.
So people can donate hours to you,
Yeah.
but I had to use all of my leave before
Before.
that was
Oh.
allowed.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks, but hey, we work from home. It was kind of easy to build back up.
Yeah. Okay.
They were very understanding in that I just couldn't go back to, it was like for me, I know people go back after a few weeks or they just go right back and they want to. I was not that person.
Yeah.
I was really struggling. It felt like going back to work was going back to a regular reality. Like it was stepping back into what life was before she was a part of it. And that was just hard for me to
Yeah.
bear the idea of
Yeah. You're like, I'm a changed person. Like, yeah. Yeah.
like it shouldn't be like that. I'm
Mm,
grateful didn't have to go back into the building. I'm grateful
good.
that a lot of people knew I was pregnant. Like I'm pretty
Yeah.
interactive with my coworkers. I interact a lot more when we were in the building. Like you walk the halls and you stop and chat with somebody, and then like you're really close to your team members and people who you sit around. They may not
Yeah.
be on your team, but like I'm really grateful. Like I didn't have to walk back into the building and the people who did not know and were expecting a baby or
Yeah.
excitement,
'Cause that's not fair
that
either. That always feels terrible when
right.
they're like, "How's your baby?" And you're like,
You're
"My
like,
baby died." Yeah. It's
there's
so
no
rough.
getting around it. Like,
No.
and I feel so honestly, I feel so bad for them
Mhm. It sucks for
because it happened
everybody.
once in a meeting and it was like on
Oh.
Zoom
Oh.
and she was so happy. And I was just like, oh no. And I feel so bad for her.
Oh.
No, she meant that in like the sweetest way.
Yeah,
And
completely. They're
it's a normal thing to ask, like
completely.
you should never feel like you can't ask how the baby's doing
Yeah.
because you don't know something might have happened. Like
Yeah.
that then goes to people feeling like they're invisible when they have kids, like
Yep. Yep, exactly. Yeah, you
it is what it is.
just it's just awkward regardless.
Yeah,
So,
whatever. It's part of life. I was really upset that because I did not have a baby, I did not qualify for maternity leave. And that if it weren't for their intervention and my bosses who just weren't going to allow it, they were like, take all the time you want, take 3 months. Like
yeah.
when you need to come back, you come back. When you don't, like if you're not ready, you're not ready. I
Yeah.
mean, I was so grateful for that support and so angry that
There was
they
yeah.
had to be supportive,
Yeah.
like that anyone was put in that position at all. Like it is infuriating to know that someone doesn't have that support structure at their work
Yeah.
and doesn't work at a company with time sharing and that they might have to go without getting paid just because they can't get themselves back in to
Yeah.
work because oh I don't know, I delivered a baby at 40 weeks and my body still needs to heal for at
E
least 6.
exactly.
I that whole thing has set me off on a different tangent. Like I always paid attention to politics, but I wasn't like doing anything.
Yeah.
And I started researching who my state senator, my senator were,
Mhm.
writing emails to them. They've both responded and they're very kind. And it's like you're on it was actually interesting. Basically, it was like a totally understand where you're coming from. It wasn't a no, but it wasn't a
Mm.
let's go do this.
Gotcha.
It was kind of like a
A middle ground, like
maybe it's something we could do. Like, but I ended up at, it was like I live in a small town at a fundraiser where one of them was at. And I was looking for the aide that I specifically spoke with on the phone a couple
hmm,
times.
okay.
And I went and I was like, hey, like, you totally don't know who I am. Like, you talk to all these people. But I was like, I'm Clarissa. We talked once and it was like, I'm so glad you came. I'm so, like, he knew exactly who I was, all
Oh,
this stuff. Like, I didn't stick around to try to meet the senator just because of there's like a line of people.
yeah, of course.
That's just not my thing. And then he like brought me over to like meet someone else who was heavily involved with his campaign. And he was like, "This is Clairissa." And she goes, I, and it was just like a, "Oh, you know." And it was like, obviously everyone's like, doesn't want to say like why they know
Yeah, because they're
all
like,
your
once
story
again, yeah, they don't want
pans
to.
out,
Yeah,
you know. But I totally get it. It's like, "Oh, this is a great day and it's really great to meet you. And your
mm,
story is incredibly sad
yeah,
and,
yeah. We're
and
sorry.
impactful."
Yeah,
And
exactly. So are you then getting
that
much more
was
involved in like trying to push it so that stillbirth is covered? Like, how are
right.
you? What are you trying to do with that?
I don't really know how to do it.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay.
So what I want, and I guess I'll just call it out. I was at Harrison's in Ellis County
Okay.
area, his campaign, and it's his aides that remembered me,
Okay.
that I ended up speaking with. And one of the aides was like, "Here's my card, like call me, we'll try to figure out next steps." Because he gave me some more steps and was like, "Send the emails, the email you wrote is great. Like you made a really good case. There's just something about like when you're a first time running senator, you don't have as much weight or whatever."
Yeah.
And anyway, and I was like, I know that there's politics to everything. I know. But who else can I talk to? And he
Yeah.
gave me some names and I sent emails, and those people I haven't heard from
Okay.
at all. Again, I'm not even sure that they can do something. Like, I think
Mhm.
so at the fundraiser, he was like, "Well, here's my card. Give me a call next week." I did not call him next week because next week was me preparing for this podcast.
Oh,
And I was like, I just kind of want to put my mental
yes.
focus into one
Yes.
thing at a time. Um, but what I want, there's like, is it 6 states or there might be more, but there's 6 states that recognize stillbirth parents. And they,
6 states out of 50, everybody. Like,
thank you.
let's
And
just
Texas isn't one.
yeah, let's just point that out. Like, just to take a step back, just like, do you really like? It's even more. I think it's more evident in your case too. It's just like Darla was 40 weeks. She was more than
40,
40 weeks. Like
more than
she was fully 7 pounds. She
7
was
pounds,
like,
15 ounces,
yep,
21 inches.
yep,
She is a full on baby.
yep. And they did not acknowledge that she had a baby. Like
Yes,
like Clairissa didn't get a certificate of birth, like that she gave birth. Like she might have, I don't know. Do you have a certificate of stillbirth or something like that, or a death certificate?
I have a death certificate.
Okay, so but like she still went through all the things. She still got an epidural. She still went through like throwing up, and like
Yep.
all of the things that go along with birth. And
I still prepared for her. Like,
yes,
I started,
exactly.
Ryan and I were trying to earn extra money. We were setting stuff aside. Baby room is like painted. Everything but the crib was like ready.
Yeah,
And that was just because I didn't like the first crib and made him return it and get a different one because, you're pregnant and picky.
you
Uh,
can do that. It's fine.
and, it's all of that stuff was done. And you go to file your taxes, and it's just another hit, like almost a year later,
Yeah,
because we ended up hiring a tax person because we just like, we had some other stuff, like, because I was working from home and I was doing my own business. And I was just like uncomfortable trying to navigate that. And so
yeah. Take care of
I'm
it.
like, "We did have a baby though." And he was like, "Oh, okay, you have one kid." And I was like, "We don't."
She
And he
doesn't.
was like looking it up and looking it up, and nope.
Yep. So only 6 states will let you take basically a child tax credit, right?
One time.
For one time for a
And that
stillbirth.
is, I mean, it's like a $2,000 tax credit
Yeah.
for having a kid. You
Yeah.
had a baby. And I think people would say stuff like, "Oh, miscarriage. Oh, it's so bad." Like, "Oh, and it's not a miscarriage. I had to deliver her."
Hmm.
And I understand that it's like some states acknowledge stillbirth and some just call it a miscarriage. And then like the week mark, because I think you and I had talked about this earlier,
Yep.
it's somewhere between 20 and 24 weeks. that they
Good.
actually classify it as a stillborn. Like, why is this flexible?
Yeah.
This this is biology. Like, this should not be flexible. We know at what stages the baby is.
Yeah.
And at this point, you either have to go to the hospital to deliver and do like you have to go, you're
You,
at some point far along where your options are different.
yes. Very different.
Very, very different. And
Yeah.
I totally understand that miscarriage and early on is incredibly painful. And I know that is a lot more common than 40 weeks. It is. I remember hearing about it once and being like, I can't imagine what that would be like. And then I found myself in those shoes. And then it was like these other hits that just kept rolling with it,
Yep.
where I'm being told, nope, you didn't have a baby. Like, or
Yeah.
that didn't count.
Yeah.
And
You have no
it's
evidence. you,
right.
you're
So
like,
like I have a baby room. I have a
yeah.
very stretched
Yeah.
out stomach.
Yeah.
Like, come
Exactly.
on.
Yeah. What else do you want from me? Like, yeah.
I so I want, and what I'm going to try again to communicate and try to find some kind of formal way to do it. I'm getting involved with the county, and trying to see like who I need to get involved with. Who do I need to know
Yeah. Well, and
to
that's kind
figure
of the
this
tricky
out?
things is that, right?
Yeah.
Politics is like, this is an issue. We need to talk about it. Let's start bringing it to the forefront. And I think it's awesome what you're trying to do.
I
Like,
totally know that like one email isn't enough, and
yeah.
emails are probably not enough either. You're going to have to like find a way to talk to somebody and
Yeah.
be in front of them. And so what I want specifically is I want at least 6 weeks of paid maternity leave, 7, 8, like something to where you can physically heal and you
Mhm.
have enough time to mentally process. I understand 3 months is a lot. I would prefer 3 months. I will be happy with
Right.
something. That means you don't have to go back in to work immediately, or that you can't be fired. Like, because it's not maternity,
Yeah.
it's not like it's not technically fired, and it's not classified under like the protection of not being let go for not
Yes.
coming in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I am lucky enough to have a company who cared enough about me to make sure none of that was a problem for me, but it's a problem for someone else.
Oh,
Um,
completely. Yeah. And
and that bothers me.
yeah.
And so I want the tax credit. I want you to acknowledge that I had a kid. I want you to protect my healing process because you already did that with the babies alive,
Yep. Exactly.
federally,
Yeah.
nationwide.
Yeah.
Why isn't that like just toss the amendment in there?
Yeah.
Or Texas, come on, 6 other states did this. Why
Yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah. No, I think that's that's one thing that I really love about our babies. Sometimes they cause us to move, and there's action usually involved, it seems like. So I think it's cool that you have desires to kind of change the way things are being done in your state, and hopefully farther than that, because I think that's awesome. Yeah, I just think it's
I
cool.
think it's like it's not a pretend it didn't happen. It's like a you just kind of move on. And I don't think I shared this last time. My grandma, whom she's mostly named after, she'll argue that point.
Yes.
She's
Listen to the birth
I
episode.
love
It's pretty funny, actually.
her. um, my grandma had 10 pregnancies. She has 5 living children.
Oh,
I mean,
whoa.
this is a long time ago, so I
Yeah.
wrote everything off as medical, like like things people didn't know or couldn't catch and that kind of stuff. And she had 2 stillbirths, and
Oh,
she because like at one point, like my grandpa couldn't be with her because they had already had like 4 kids or something like that, and whoever was in charge, like his boss, just didn't tell him she was going into labor, because he was like, like finish your shift. It'll be a couple hours. Like back then people are just so much more strict, and that's just the way it was. And it was just her, and they took the baby away and she
oh,
couldn't hold her. And she just didn't have support, it was just so swept under the rug and then dismissed and not talked about, which is why I had no idea that could happen at 40 weeks. I mean, you sort of know it could happen.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
Y
It's like, I think the last study I saw was 1 in 200,
yeah. And you're
200 pregnancies.
like, "That's not gonna be my that I'm not gonna be that statistic." You don't
I
think that.
never thought I was. I'm not someone who worries. I don't think that's totally going to happen to me and then stress about it and panic. I go, that's not me. Like,
Yeah.
move on, move along. I can beat myself all day for not counting kicks or having a heart rate monitor at home. I didn't think that was remotely possible. And I think women need to be aware it is possible,
Yeah.
and you should count, even if it is a healthy pregnancy and you're young and it's totally fine and nothing's wrong,
Yeah. You're low risk and
and
yeah.
you're low risk, and don't worry about it. Don't stress and lose your mind over it. But maybe, pay attention once you get to a certain point. Pay
Yeah.
closer attention. Like, education on that front should be so much more than just going to your OBGYN. Like,
Mhm.
especially during COVID, it was like there's no birthing class. Like,
Yep.
it was, you can kind of do an online one. Like, we paid for it was like a holistic mama thing.
Yeah.
Like, we were like, let's just watch this. It was like I was gonna try to do it without the epidural. And then of course I get there and I'm like, no, no, no. I'm in enough mental anguish.
Yep.
I cannot
I
drug
don't
me up, please and thank you.
yes. Sign me up.
And
Yep.
yeah. And they just don't, not that they have to be the ones to educate you. I just think maybe should have maybe talked about,
Oh, yeah.
you just women speak louder about this.
Yes, and I cannot talk about this enough, also, like, that's why, like, whenever I talk to anybody that's pregnant, I was like, "Are you counting kicks? There's an app. You should count the kicks." Like,
I didn't
you
even
know
know there was an app. You just
Yeah,
blew my mind with that.
yeah, so, like, I mean, if you wanna look at this, I think it's awesome, but there's an organization based in Iowa called Count the Kicks, and they do some awesome work trying to get more information out, and I do think doctors need to be a little bit more like, "You need to know your baby." Like,
Give some pamphlets, like give
yeah.
them some people to connect with, like
Yeah, it's I mean, I think education is a huge there's a huge component there that is missing that could help in preventing actually some of these
mhm,
stillbirths, honestly, and then
mhm.
also just preparing people of just like, stuff does happen. So, I don't know.
The hard part with like count the kicks is like, yeah, count the kicks. But then it's like, now I'm stressing out and I'm freaking out and I'm like
Yeah.
tense and counting and like it's not enough. But I also really wish I did.
Yeah.
But I
I
also
know.
don't know that that would have made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like what ifs, but yeah, I if you get a
Therapy.
chance. Yes. Oh, yeah, let's talk about therapy. So is that a something that has helped you in healing?
Oh yeah. So Ryan, I saw he was like our couples counselor for ages. And so
Oh,
we
okay.
saw him for like a year. And we just kind of like slowly backed away. Like, I don't know, I thought I was doing better.
Mm.
And I was. I mean, like when I was consistently going, I ended up seeing someone else, and I think, the big reason was that he does the EMDR
Oh,
therapy,
okay, yeah.
the tapping, and I had heard some good things about that from friends, and the guy I'm going to was like highly recommended from like a family friend. Like
Yeah,
she did nothing but rant about how great he was for like
awesome.
always, and I was like, oh, okay, okay, fine. And she was like, no, 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 go, go, go. And I was like, oh, I don't, seeing someone new, it's like, oh, I have to tell my story again. It was better to tell it again because it's like he can ask more inquisitive questions and he can be more thoughtful because he wasn't there, like there,
Right, right, when it was
during
happening.
everything.
Yes, yeah.
So anytime I want to say something and brush over it, he's like,
Mhm. I'll
what was
get back to
that?
I'll get
That
back to
is
that at some point in time.
And I was like, maybe that's not normal. Whoops. Thanks for finding that out for me. but the but the EMDR therapy, they don't typically like start off quickly. But I had been in therapy for so long, and he knows the previous therapist. He was like, okay, like I know that you've done this work and you've done this, and you've done the talk therapy a lot.
Yes.
So we had several sessions where we were kind of like getting to know and kind of like where to start. He was explaining how it works. It is the most painful therapy I've ever done. I bawl my eyes out every time. I pretty sure I'm making him cry.
It's yeah,
And
I
I feel so different now. Like
what kinda
it's
different?
I can say her name. I could say Darla. I can use her I can say Darla in everyday conversation. I
Mhm.
wasn't doing that. It was like it slowly kept getting stuff, but then I was like picking fights, and like just
Mm.
choosing not to hang out or see people or whatever. And like we had stupidly picked up smoking after we had quit for a long time. And so, you're like, oh, it's just nicotine withdrawals because we quit again. And
Yeah.
you're like excusing all these
All these
things.
other things that are happening or
Yeah. And the reality is I stopped processing. I stopped talking about her. I
Mhm.
started pretending I was totally fine. And talking about her again to someone new, to a therapist who knows what he's doing. Our previous therapist knows what he's doing. Ryan still sees him and loves him. He's like our couple. But the EMDR stuff is not like a weight has lifted, but it's like, I mean, it's a workout on your brain. Like he's like, drink water if you need to take a nap, write down any dreams or any like emotions that come up. Like it can make you emotional for like a day or two later. My best friend and Ryan have said that it's like a night and day difference since I started doing it. They're
Wow.
like the way that you are and carry yourself is so different. And my counselor said that was interesting because usually the person who's doing the work feels and notices the difference before outward people see it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm better, but like I'm very skeptical and feel about stuff. So it's just not something that's like on my mind.
Yeah.
How am I feeling and doing today? I don't check in with myself. I probably
Mhm.
should. It's probably a good thing to do. I don't. This is real honest. And they just like, especially my best friend, she was like, I can't tell you enough. It's like I have my best friend back and she's not like the cloud is lifted. And she's like, and I know it's not gone and it'll never be gone. Darla is always a part of us. I never want to take that away. And
Yeah.
even my counselor has said, like, this isn't, we're not trying to remove the pain. We're trying to let you think and talk about her without it being crushing. Like
Yes.
it will always hurt, it will always be painful. I will always remember her. My kids will always have an older sister,
Yeah.
she's just not here. And I was actually really surprised that I did the first episode with you and I didn't have a complete meltdown.
Yeah, you
And
did say that, and I was just like, well, and we usually do have a lot of crying. I mean, like, it's emotional, and so
I mean, I
it
cry when I listen to their stories. Like, I
yeah.
love what you're doing, and I wanted to come on and share because I it's helped me a lot to hear what other women have gone through. And on the crying note, I fully expected like to lose it, especially over specific memories, like finding out she didn't have a heartbeat, being alone in that room, Ryan finally showing up, finally Ryan getting there,
Yes.
after I told him not to be,
Yeah.
and just him holding me and like all of that. Usually just I can't speak, and I would attribute that to therapy,
Yeah.
specifically EMDR, because we went over that memory and
Yeah.
like it feels like it's been processed better,
Yeah.
accepted as a part of my life and who I am, a part of Darla's story. And one thing that I was doing a lot was beating myself up for thinking I missed stuff. I missed signs. And there was, I think it was baby Jacob's story a few episodes
Mhm.
at this point, a few episodes before,
Yeah.
um, where her mom was a midwife and like she had been around like all the pregnant women and knew all of the things.
Yeah.
And I don't have that. Like all my friends who have had kids, they had kids like, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was like, kids, like that's scary.
Yeah.
um, and so I just didn't have like I didn't know
Like,
all of the
yeah,
stuff,
reference points and stuff. Yeah.
right? Reference points, all of those. Like I just didn't understand, like didn't even know what to ask about or what to think about, or whatever. Like to hear her say, it definitely like was the umbilical cord. Like my mom knows that it would be hard to not like it would be hard to believe that was the case if she wasn't there and she told me. I had people who saw it wrapped around Darla's leg.
Yeah.
And it is good to know that they know and they can firmly remind me. And it's nice to know that I'm not the only one who thought I did something wrong. I walked too much. I tried to like, help her flip and like it's all my fault and all of those things. I didn't have like a big sign. Like I did have one night where I thought I was kind of close to delivery.
Mhm.
I was 40 weeks I was 41 days. It was literally the night before the doctor's
Yeah.
appointment. And I was like, maybe I'm going to delivery. I don't know what delivery feels like.
Yeah.
No severe sharp pain. I felt weird.
Yeah. And that was it.
That that's all I had. I felt weird. That's I can't even describe it because I haven't been pregnant before her
Yeah. Mhm.
and I don't know what the difference would have been or
Mhm.
if that is a Braxton Hicks contraction.
Contraction or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Like I don't know if that's what I was feeling or if I was
Yeah.
feeling her pass. I don't know. There's so many things you can look to and try to figure out and you know,
Yeah.
therapy
I
people.
yeah, therapy people. I actually wanted to let everybody know that when Clarissa's mentioning EMDR, that is a type of therapy that's an acronym for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. And
I
thank
do
you so much for looking it up.
I did totally just look it up because I was like, I'm going to say it wrong. So when, and a lot of people use this as a way to process trauma.
Mhm.
And if you think about um, especially what you just described of like that time when they told me she had no more heartbeat, that she didn't have a heartbeat. And that is like, when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I have trauma around that time too. Like the
Mhm.
exact moment when they're like, there's nothing. Like,
Yeah.
and and that's a way to help you process that. And like you said, kind of have it be a part of her story, but
Mhm.
it's not it's not the only part of her story. I just think
Mhm.
it's very interesting. And you have not done it very often. Like you're still fairly new
Fairly new. Yeah, to
in
to
it.
actually working on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It it was kind of a ongoing joke. He was like, "Okay, I look forward to our next session." I was like, "Do you?"
Do you know what you're dealing
I
with
was
right
like,
now?
"I'm not sure I could say I'm looking forward to it." Like I enjoy working with you and talking
Yes.
about it, but
But it
it
is
it is not for the faint of heart. It is painful. It sucks
yeah.
and it hurts and it is helping immensely.
Yeah. That is I
If you're interested, do it.
Yes. I was gonna say, like, I will jump on that same bandwagon of, like, my husband, Lee, he has done some EMDR around, same thing about our son's death, and then, I'm about to actually embark on it myself, and so I just, like, I think that Clarissa and I were talking about this before, we're like, "Therapy, yes." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are so
High
many
five.
options high five. Exactly. There are so many options, like, if we can encourage you, especially this is so traumatic. This experience that you may have experienced as a lost mom, if you're watching this or listening to this, is that
Mhm.
it's traumatic. There's so much that is, you might need to unpackage. And
Yeah.
so, to be a functioning human, at least for me anyway. So I encourage it. I think Clarissa is on the same thing of like therapy. Like,
I am really trying to like work on this stuff because I know that when we are pregnant, I am pregnant again. That's going to come with its own basket case of
yeah,
worry and
yeah.
anxiety. And I would like to have Darla not be such a sharply painful, and it be a love. There's pain, there's loss. That will never change.
Mhm.
But I would like to be able to be pregnant again and not be terrified.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had that experience or not. I haven't been able to listen to every episode yet.
Yeah. I we have had a baby after our loss,
Mhm.
and I have said this before. It feels like you are holding your breath for 9 months.
Yeah.
And we were going through therapy as well as a couple to try and help go through that, and that was very helpful. It was very, very
Yeah.
helpful. Um, there's still that just underlying layer of
Mhm.
anxiety though, but I do think that if there's any way that you can like start just kind of help work through those thoughts, work through some of the things that do come with that experience on top of being pregnant with another one is yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, you know?
I will very likely be induced early for the next one.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, I will most definitely be induced early. And I know that that's probably like, it's not okay. It's okay. Like, you should, you shouldn't. Who knows? That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. You're like, "Decided."
Yeah. Yeah. But, that it's like, it is awful that it was after 40 weeks and it sucks. And I'm also, it's like, I know that, like, I've been through a healthy pregnancy and I know that, like, up to this point, like I'm not watching for a marker and then like terrified past that marker.
Yeah.
Because in theory, I will be delivering before that marker.
Yeah.
But I still don't imagine it being like I'll be holding my breath
Yeah.
while trying to take deep breaths
Yeah.
because you have to breathe in
You
order to
gotta
have a
breathe.
baby.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Clarissa, I do wanna ask you, some of the things because you mentioned a few of them while we were talking about, Darla's birth. But what are some things that were extremely helpful and things that maybe people said or did that were like super supportive of you and Ryan during the time of everything going down and maybe even after the fact? Like, what were some of the things that kind of stood out to you that were really helpful? Or if you have any advice for others who may be supporting a lost parent in their life?
I really appreciated getting flowers and plants.
Yeah, yeah,
I know not a lot of people, they're like, oh, but they die. And like, that's sad. And it made me just want to start keeping like, I buy flowers now occasionally and just like spread them out throughout the house, whereas I
yeah,
used to never do that.
yeah,
It makes me think of her. I had people, drop off food, and that was so sweet and made
yeah,
my life so much easier.
yeah,
I think I said that in the earlier one too. We had very thoughtful family members let people know, like, hey, don't go up there until like you're ready. Like
mm,
Clarissa and Ryan are a wreck in general. Don't like go comfort them.
yeah,
They've lost their baby,
yeah,
you know, and obviously like everyone who was at the hospital we're very close to and love us and we love them. And it was just, we found out about after the fact and it was just very thoughtful and nice. And there's some other stuff like my brother set up a GoFundMe, which was allowed us to do a lot of therapy.
yeah.
Which was really great
Like
and very helpful.
there's a kind of this financial aftermath that you don't even think about. Like,
It is,
you had a
which goes
baby.
back to the political thing
Yes,
where I'm like,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, like you had a baby, you stayed in the hospital. There's a very good chance you were in the hospital, and you still incurred
two
debt there.
epidurals,
Yeah,
panic attack, full
exactly.
delivery.
Yeah,
It was expensive.
yeah, it's expensive, and then you're like, okay, now I have to go back to work, or do I have to take time off, or take time off without pay? I mean, like, there's just all these things,
Yeah.
and then so that is really kind that somebody set up that GoFundMe, your brother set up that GoFundMe Cause like, yeah, therapy is expensive, everybody. Like, but worth it,
Go.
but expensive. Like it can be expensive. So I think
It,
that's
it's
great that
like,
you use that for therapy. I think seriously,
it was
like you,
like, and we put it on there. They're like, what is this for? Bills, therapy, and a couple nights in a cabin. Like,
yeah,
like
you're gonna like, yeah,
big
that.
advice, take a trip with your spouse. Like,
Oh, yeah,
do something with them. Uh, because Mother's Day was so close right after we
yeah,
had her.
yeah,
My in-laws got us a really cool Airbnb, like that had a hot tub and hammock, and like, we were able to like go down there, relax for several days.
and be in kind of a physically different environment because that is
Different. I mean,
yes,
yes, physically different environment. Like, because I was reading books that were telling me like what would be happening at week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, all the way up to like a year.
hmm,
And so I had only gotten to like 6 to like 3 months or something because I was like, oh, I don't want to forget that information. And it was now like this mental click of time.
hmm,
And it was so much harder to not, it was so much harder to think about it. Like, I'm sorry, to not think about it. Like it just kept popping up because I was at my house
yeah.
and popping up. Um, Another really great thing family did for us, they came and cleaned our house. Like,
That is huge.
did put up, someone else like went through and put up everything baby because we had filtered baby things all throughout the house because we're at 40 weeks.
Yeah.
We need this, and it was like stuff was placed, playpens, and like I don't know whatever she would end up needing because I don't know because I didn't
Yeah.
have kids. And I just had stuff like baby bottles and like everything baby was like tons of stuff throughout the house. And they came through and like put it all up in the baby room and took stuff out of our room for her and put it all up so that it was one more thing Ryan or I wouldn't have to do. And I know it was nice to just walk into a house filled with like Febreze air
Yeah.
and like
And
carpets were
flowers. Yeah,
vacuumed.
exactly.
And oh, my sister-in-law was so thoughtful. It was like I think it was her and her sisters came by and did all this stuff, and then they bought me a robe and
Mm.
pajamas and like comfy socks and put a little night basket next to my bed and just filled with like nice girly things.
That
Pink things.
is yeah, so kind because you just think you will not like, I don't know about you, but, like, after you give birth, you're just, like, a hot mess anyway, right? And then
Yeah.
you add on the fact that you've lost your baby, you're, like, even
Hmm.
more of a hot mess, and so to have something that is like, "Oh, you remember you are a female, a woman, and
Yeah.
you deserve nice things," and yeah,
Yeah.
that is really kind.
And my best friend, she's like stayed with us for like a week or two. And
Yeah.
which was great because like people were just filtering in and out of the house and just coming in and checking on us and talking and like, we were also in therapy and all this stuff. And like she was just keeping up with like tidying the house and
Oh,
all that stuff. And she would just like, I'd have to go take care of after you have a baby, things are happening to your body still.
yep.
And so you still have to go take care of all of that. Like I still had to take pretty heavy duty painkillers because at one point, like they started wearing off and I was just like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't really need it. Like, whatever. And when I didn't have them perfectly matching up the way they're supposed to,
Yep.
it's like I like the first couple of days, I was like, okay, I need to take them at this point of the day in order for it to not like wean off or
Yeah.
wear off, whatever.
Wear off. Yep.
And I remember being somewhere else and it started wearing off, and I was just like, it hit so hard. It was like this big reminder of you just had a baby.
Yep.
If the diaper didn't already tell you that.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that is I think it's awesome that your friend stayed with you. I mean, obviously that says a lot about your relationship with her that
She's
she
amazing.
yeah, that she was willing to do that and then also she was like, "I'm just inviting myself over and you sorry, I'm going to just keep
Yeah.
everything going." And I think it's
And
awesome.
I have one of my like oldest best friends. Like, she came down, she lives well over an hour away, and she, came down before the funeral and just, like, hung out. People It means so much for everyone to go so far out of their way to care for us.
Yeah, take care of you. I think that's great. I know I always like I love that part just because it always reminds me of all the people that came out of the woodworks to help us too and just love on us and care
Yeah.
for us and like feed us, like literally feed us sometimes because we were just
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna sit here and just be sad, okay?
Mhm.
So
And Ryan had people who were caring for him too, like, well, during the hospital, like, just trying to, like, "Hey, like, you want a distraction? Yeah, I could use a distraction. Let's talk about something."
yeah. Yeah,
You
something
know?
else. Yeah.
Just help him breathe.
Yeah. It's so much. It's so overwhelming. Conversely, Clarissa, this is
Mhm.
one of my favorite parts. Okay, it's not one of my favorite parts, but was
Yeah.
there was there something that were there any things that you would recommend people not do or not say if they're going through a loss like this? I just know that there's people are kind and they really most of the time, I would say majority of the time they are just trying to they're doing and saying something that is based on their experience, based on their life where they're at, and sometimes it's well-meaning, right? It always seems like it's well-meaning, but sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't come off that way. So, was there anything that maybe you would recommend for others who are maybe taking care of some lost parents that maybe just stay away from some of these things?
Yes to coffee delivery. you
Yes to
know?
coffee delivery. Okay, you can definitely do that. Yes.
You could definitely do that or just drop off food.
Yeah.
Um, I'll say, like, and I'm guilty of this, like, "Is there anything I can do for you?" No one's ever gonna actually ask, like,
Yeah.
especially when you're in that point, and I'm still guilty of saying, "Can I do something for you?"
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, so inherent.
Yes.
Um, Sometimes it's just the doing,
Just do
when
it.
my sister-in-laws just texted, "I'm at Starbucks and bringing you something. What do you want?"
Yes.
Like, it was
Yeah.
just out of the blue and sweet. And,
Yeah,
um
I wanna point out one thing. I just like, I love the way you said that. It's just like, don't give them any option. You are doing it. So just like
yeah,
get rid of the question. Just do
yeah,
something. You can ask the question about what they want specifically, but
yeah,
get rid of the what can I do for you?
uh-huh,
Like cuz we're in no mental state to know what we want or what we
mhm,
need. So
mhm.
thank you for bringing that
Exactly.
up.
I mean, when I learned of anything, like, upsetting, it was all after the fact to when I would be, like, laughing, and I'm like, "You know what? Like, this is a shitty scenario." Sorry. This is
It
a
is.
crappy scenario.
Yeah. Yep. It
Um,
is.
and it sucks all the way around, and no, not everybody knows how to handle it, you
Mhm.
know? Be aware of that, and for the close family members who see something happening, you don't need to tell the parents immediately. You don't need to tell them at
Mm.
all unless, it's enough time has passed and you think maybe they should be aware of whatever, but
Yeah.
understand that. I mean, I was in shock. I I couldn't make a decision. I
Yep.
needed so many people to, like, push me to make what I believe now are the right ones, but I was in freeze mode. I don't know what to do with all of this. I don't want to plan a funeral. I don't want to deliver. I don't want to figure any of this out, you know? Like, my mom's just taking me shopping. You're a whole different size than you've ever been
Yeah.
because you're, you know, days past delivery. And you obviously need a dress because who plans to just own? And I wanted something special, but I also didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Just especially if you're a close family member, just the doing is really helpful. And then if you feel like maybe something you did wasn't received the way it was intended, like meant to be, know
Mhm.
that they just can't process anything. And
Yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah.
And it is hard to think about. I'm sure I did something to upset somebody. I'm sure that I did because it is hard for me to consider anything, thinking about stuff, talking about it. Like, I don't really know where I'm rambling with this, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
I'm still rambling about
Yeah.
it and I can't really formulate. I can't even point to anything specific. I'm just stuff that I'm listening to from your show too, and people that I know and the people I know who did wonderful things. I didn't really have anyone say something to me that was like painful. There's always people who didn't know that we lost the baby.
Yeah.
I'm not upset with them,
No, they're
you
yeah.
know.
How are they gonna know?
Yeah, they were just trying to check in and say,
Yeah.
"Congrats."
Yeah.
Like, "Aren't you gonna send off pictures?"
No, I'm
I
not.
There's one other thing I wanna point out. My best friend took care of Facebook for me. I
Oh,
just
mhm.
handed her my phone. I was like, "I can't write it, like, I can't do any of that." And, she wrote out this big, long thing. I read it and changed what I felt like I wanted to change, and in it, she said, "If you want any other, like, if you're a close family friend or whatever, and you want other information or whatever, please DM Caitlin." And she filtered all of it, like, it was just
Ugh, that
so
is
sweet and so kind and so wonderful.
yeah.
And, we had another best friend of ours. He was down and he just would hang out with us. And it was just, my brother just came and hung out with us. Like, I mean, I could go on and on about all the people who were wonderful and
Yeah.
just loved us so much and still do. And it's nice that, like, it's not forgotten, like, she's not forgotten. Her impact was huge. Kicked our butts into buying a house, and it was
Yeah.
in the perfect timing too,
Yeah.
because we ended up in the same neighborhood as my brother and sister-in-law,
Yeah.
who, if we didn't, we wouldn't have gotten closer, and they wouldn't
Mm.
have been there to give me the advice they gave me. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have had a delivery, and I wouldn't have held my daughter if she wasn't there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the presence of mind. I didn't have it. I just couldn't believe it was happening.
Yeah.
And it sucks that, like, those memories are foggy, and it helped that everyone came over and was like talking about it, making jokes and playing music by the fire pit. And it was really helped that it was Texas and it was actually cold enough to have a fire pit.
Yeah.
Which we're finally entering that season, which I'm also grateful
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I
seems
mean,
like
yeah,
Dar
and then Brian's, like, job changed, like, he was working from home with a company, and then after we lost her, my best friend ended up changing careers and, like, working for someone more independently in
Mhm.
Dallas. And now Brian's got a whole different career, and he's working with them out in Dallas, and he
Oh,
just loves it, and it's just so different, and all of that just it's very unlikely it would have panned out if Darla wasn't a part of our lives. And she just brought all the family so much closer. Like,
yeah, it really does seem like she did. Like,
she did.
just from, your story about her birth and then, just talking to you beforehand, it really sounds like she kind of put into place all of these things so that you would just be closer to your
Mhm,
family. And I think that is huge. Like, what an
mhm,
impact that she had, even though she's not here with you. She's
mhm.
like her effect is seen.
And I don't know, you could probably tell me this is true. I feel like when I do have the baby at home with me, I won't be so annoyed with the crying. Like,
Yeah.
my niece, I babysit my niece, and she was born 8 months after Darla and
Mhm.
maybe 7. She's fussy, and I just don't doesn't bother me. Like, I don't know if that rings true for anyone else, but, like, it just is now, like, this natural thing. Whereas before it was like babies always cried whenever I held them because they could feel the fear.
I can smell it on me.
They could smell it on me. It is what it is. And it's just different now.
Yeah.
And that's all her.
Yeah. I felt a big change in my life and I felt like I had a new leash on life actually. I
Yeah.
felt like I had just was more patient and just more willing to take on things just because my son was very inspirational to me. And
Mhm,
it sounds like the same thing with you, just like you have a different perspective. You have a different lens in which you look at life and I think
mhm.
that's really cool.
And even this
Clary
conversation is helpful. Like,
yeah.
if
It
anyone's out
totally
there
is.
thinking about coming on and you have a story, I highly encourage you to do it.
Yeah, it's so just it's I like, everybody's like, "Isn't it kinda hard to do this podcast?" I was like, "Yes, but no," at the same time because I get to talk to another mom who gets what the heck I've gone through. Like,
Mhm,
it's so hard to not be able to talk about this to everybody, so it's
mhm,
nice to have this time together.
mhm.
And Clarissa, thank you so much. It has been really fun to kind of see how things have been for you in this last, I don't know, almost over 18 months, and
Mhm.
I'm glad that Darla is making big ripples in your life. I think
She
it's
still is.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.